Today's episode of The Overwhelmed Brain is brought to you by you. Because without you, there would be no TOB. Are you annoyed by affirmations? Don't you just love it when you're told to
think positively? If I can still be happy after having to pay taxes from my lottery winnings, you can find happiness in spite of your losses too.
If affirmations feel like lies and positive thinking feels like denial, then get ready to start creating the life you've always wanted now. Hello, this is Paul Coliani, your personal empowerment coach and host of The Overwhelmed Brain, the personal growth show for the critical thinker. On every episode, we'll talk about practical, down-to-earth steps to help you improve your mood and keep you sane in this powerful journey we call life. I want to help you bridge the gap between your emotions and reason, causing you to discover why you do the things you do and what you can do to reach higher levels of happiness and lower levels of stress and overwhelm. If you're here to learn more common sense tips for improving your life, you are in the wrong place. This is the direct path to uncommon sense, and that's why it's going to help you learn, heal, grow, and evolve. And speaking of evolving, let me read you today's quote, which is by Miranda Kerr. It's this: a nice person is a yes person, whereas a good person is a person who accepts their responsibility in things and moves forward and tries to constantly evolve and isn't afraid to say no or challenge someone or be honest or truthful. The funny thing about this quote is that it pretty much wraps up the entire overwhelmed brain concept. It's my philosophy. It's everything that I talk about here. It's authenticity. It's honoring yourself and your personal boundaries. It's doing what you want to do for yourself and just being a good person to you. For so many years, I was a yes person. And the people in my life, friends and family, would not see that as a fault. They saw it as something that they could utilize. Now, I don't mean it in a bad way. I just mean that when you say yes to people, they get used to you saying yes to people, and you probably say yes with a smile. So if you're one of these yes people like I was for many years, your yes comes with likely an inauthentic smile. Now, maybe you're not an inauthentic yes person. Maybe you're an authentic yes person and you love helping people and it fulfills you and it satisfies you and you keep friendships forever and you get along with everyone all the time. If you're that way, congratulations. It sounds like you found meaning and purpose to everything in your life. If not, however, and you are or were like I was, you'll find that your friendships will burn out and you'll start feeling worse and worse inside. And the reason is because you say yes when you don't really mean yes. You say, yeah, I'd love to do that when you don't really love to do it. You'll say, sure, I'll help you move down those 4 flights of stairs this weekend when you would rather go camping or read a book or watch TV this weekend. Now, there's a difference between helping a friend out and feeling a little discomfort when that happens and always being there for someone, even when you have trouble being there for yourself. And what I mean by that is if you don't listen to yourself, listen to your body, and follow the messages that you're getting from inside you, and you are saying yes to people and doing things that are making you uncomfortable, but you do them anyway, just because you want to be seen in their eyes as nice, as someone who never raises an eyebrow or gets angry or has any problem with being asked to do anything. If you're seen as that way, that's how you'll be treated for indefinitely. Now, this behavior comes in handy sometimes. If you're really trying to get ahead at work and you want to be the person that shows the boss that you'll do anything no matter what it takes, this behavior can come in handy. But note to self, once you display this behavior, it's hard to break it. It's hard to get out of the behavior. And once you get in higher positions, get promotions or anything like that, you'll be expected to do more and more unless you get to a position where you are giving the orders and then you finally get a break from saying yes to everyone. But you know as well as I do, there's always someone to answer to. There's always someone. And that person's going to come down and say, I have a project coming up and I thought of you. It's going to involve long weekends and late nights and not much time at home, but you always pull through. So I'm going to entrust this project with you. And now you're there, stuck, going, wow, I don't really want to do that, but I don't want to get fired. And I don't want to look bad in his eyes or her eyes. So you go, oh yeah, no problem. I'll take care of that. Sure. Then the person you answer to leaves the office and then you sit down and you're like, oh crap, what did I just get myself into? This happens all over the place. This isn't just work. It's family, it's friends, it's any promises that you make that you really don't want to fulfill. It's commitments that you make that you don't want to commit to. Being a yes person basically means being a no person to yourself. And I want you to turn that around in your head. If you are a yes person and you say yes without thinking about what's in your best interest first, then just say, I'm a no person to myself. And feel how that feels. Get that experience in your system. Because saying yes to everyone else, more often than not, slowly chips away at who you are, how you feel, and causes you to swallow emotions that you don't want to swallow. When you'd rather be authentic and you choose not to be, that eats away at you. So what do you do? What do you do if you are a yes person and you don't like confrontation? You don't like when people look at you funny after you honor yourself. What do you do? Well, here's what I did. The first thing I had to realize is that you get comfortable accepting the consequences no matter what. And what that means is if you choose to honor yourself and the consequences might be someone getting angry at you or looking at you funny or not understanding why you'd say no to them, get comfortable with their response. And all that means is people may have a negative reaction towards you honoring yourself, but you have to ask yourself, do you want people in your life that don't respect you honoring yourself? Do you want to work for someone who doesn't respect you honoring yourself? Do you want to live with someone who doesn't respect you honoring yourself? Again, work is a different animal, and if you really want to rise in the ranks, you probably have to, I hate to say it, kiss some butt or just be the best damn worker you can, because that's how employment and jobs typically go. Not all of them, and sometimes you could be friends with your boss and be authentic and there's no problem. But sometimes you're in a situation where maybe you really want the job that you have and you do have to kiss some butt, unfortunately, to get ahead and keep moving forward. I made a decision a long time ago to never have to kiss butt again. And that doesn't mean that I went off on my own and started a coaching practice. I actually did this when I worked for people. I decided I won't kiss my bosses behind. And if I have something to say, I'm going to say it. And if they fire me, at least I can walk away with dignity, knowing that I did the right thing for me. This isn't my advice to you. This is just something that develops inside of you when you start honoring yourself. When you start honoring yourself, it feels fantastic, because if you've not been doing it, it's something you've not felt or experienced before, and it's empowering. And feeling empowered gives you the strength, the confidence, and the pure determination to make things happen in your life. That way, if someone does fire you, you look inward and go, wow, I worked for this jerk just because I stood up for myself and honored myself. This jerk fired me? Wow, so glad I'm out of that. That's the attitude I developed, and let me share with you, I've never gotten fired by honoring myself. In fact, I've only gotten recognized. I've only been more admired and respected. Because what happens is that you find out that you're just working with another person. And that person is probably used to people not being authentic around them. So they just hear the same stuff over and over again. Like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, sir, no, ma'am. And so when someone comes in and says, look, I'm not going to stand for this. I deserve respect. And when you did that out in the office and embarrassed me, that was not right. Now, it doesn't mean you come in there yelling and screaming, but you come in there with conviction. You come to honoring yourself with conviction. Again, like I said, this isn't advice. It's just something I started to do. I started in small ways honoring myself and being okay with the consequences. Sometimes you can't be okay with the consequences. Sometimes you're in a dangerous situation, and if you honor yourself, a person might get angry or violent. Sometimes you might be living paycheck to paycheck, and if you honor yourself, your boss fires you, and now you have no money coming in. But the funny thing is, how is that a bad thing? Sure, I've got kids to feed. Sure, I've got a house payment. Sure, I've got a car payment. All this stuff is absolutely important. And sometimes you have to weigh the consequences against what's most important to you to find out what you're willing to lose and what you're willing to gain. For me, I was willing to lose my house. I was willing to lose my relationships. And I am still in a place that if I honor myself, it is possible that I could lose money, relationships, friends, family, you name it. I could lose any of these things because I'm honoring myself. But I'm willing to take that chance because I honor me overall. This is a powerful place to be. And what happens is typically the opposite of what we think will happen. When you start honoring you overall, the world either conforms or rejects. They either appreciate you more or they don't want anything to do with you. It's all a matter of how far you're willing to go for yourself. And if you've been a yes person much of your life, this is the path I want you to take. I want you to start honoring yourself and start saying no in little ways. When someone asks you to work this weekend or take time away from something that you really wanted to do, you say, no, I really wanted to do this weekend, but thanks for asking. And then you stick with it, because people who know you well will have known you to buckle in when they say, oh, come on, it'll only be for a few hours. I just need a little bit of help. Or I just need you to do this one thing for me, just one thing. And then you check in with yourself. Does that one thing feel good? Will you be able to do that one thing and feel good afterward? Or do you feel like it's being something taken away from you? If you feel like something's being taken away from you, it's literal. It is something chipping away, getting eaten away inside of you. Every time you don't honor yourself and you feel it, you swallow that negative emotion and you feel like something is being taken away from you. This is how I lost many friendships, many relationships, because I didn't honor myself. Because as time went on and these people were in my life and they knew me as the person who always said yes to things, I felt worse and worse year after year. And then soon I was abandoning friendships. I was getting burnt out from people taking advantage of me, all because I let them take advantage of me, all because I didn't honor myself. In fact, I honored other people over me. And that's what I want you to take away from this segment. When you honor other people over you, does it feel very good? It might. You might have no problem doing this, like I said earlier. But when it doesn't feel good, that's when you need to take notice. And that's when you need to start standing up for yourself, inside yourself, honoring yourself, being compassionate toward yourself. And when you are all these things, when you really absorb that into your soul, then you'll have no problem saying no to people. You'll have no problem being firm in your decisions and actions. You hear me say that at the end of every show. Be firm in your decisions and actions so that you can create the life you want. Creating the life you want isn't about being a no to yourself person. Remember that. I'm a no person. I say no to myself. That doesn't feel good at all. Creating the life you want is about saying yes to yourself. It's about honoring yourself and honoring your path and committing to things for you. It doesn't mean you completely eliminate saying yes to everyone else anytime or every time. It just means that when you're checking in with yourself, when you need to make a decision, and it doesn't feel right to say yes to someone else, then say yes to yourself. Miranda says, a nice person is a yes person, whereas a good person is a person who accepts their responsibility in things and moves forward and tries to constantly evolve and isn't afraid to say no or challenge someone or be honest or truthful. So there's your homework. Be a good person to yourself. Hang around for the next segment coming up in a moment. Welcome back, and I want to mention getoutofthemess.com. If you've been listening, every week we talk to Asha, who is an independent representative for Legal Shield, where you can get the legal services of real attorneys for $20 a month. That means they can represent you with a phone call or letters, or you can call them and ask them questions that you have regarding any legal matters. They've saved Asha tons of times. I don't know why. She just has this legal trouble magnet on her or something. I don't know. But it is. She's been using it for 8 years, and she just loves it. So that's why she became an associate for them. And I always ask her a question every week. So this question I want to ask her is this. I'm not married. I don't have kids. How important is it that I have a will? Like, I think about, I'm not going to die for another 70, 80 years. So is it important that I even think about creating a will, and, how much would that cost under this service?
Well, considering that you're not married and have no children, then, I guess you could gamble and throw the die and see what happens and hope nobody gets stuck with a bunch of bills on your behalf. But it's more important for people who do have families. Obviously, wills are absolutely covered with the plan. And it's very important, especially for people who own stuff, people who have debt. Believe it or not, if you have debt, you want to have a will or some kind of measures in place so that it can be handled. People have access to your accounts. They can send death certificates and all that sort of jazz. You need to have access to bank accounts, statements, documents. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on there, and you need to have it all in one place where people know about it. So you should keep it up to date. If you have children and you have any estate or any assets, or if you have a significant other, especially if there is any way that anybody could ever cause qualms about it and argue about it, you definitely want to have something in writing saying exactly how that's supposed to go. You can't write something and stick in a jar and expect it to be submissible in court. You can't mail it to yourself in an envelope. If it doesn't meet the certain criteria, then it's not going to be usable. Now, personally, I don't understand anything about what's required in the legal this and the legal that, so I hired an attorney. My first will was $650 to prepare, and I didn't have a lot of assets. I just needed something in writing saying that whatever I did have went to my son. But wills can be expensive. It depends how much you own, how many options, how many trusts and things need to be set up. A living will, a will, and a durable power of attorney, I believe, are all included as part of the service, and you can get it revised once a year. So that's included with your basic cost, and it is absolutely important. Things can get tied up. People can fight. I've watched people in my own family squabble over very insignificant estates. You'd be amazed what money makes people do. It can be a nightmare. So have yourself covered. Make sure the people you want get what you want them to have. The basic service for individuals is just under $20 a month, and for an entire family, I think it usually runs around $24.95, and that covers all of your dependents and your spouse, including domestic partners. This plan is awesome. The goal is to provide fair representation for everyone, regardless of their status, and which includes, in our service, regardless of their preferences and lifestyles. So domestic partners of same-sex partners are absolutely covered under the services. To get more information about this, contact me at getoutofthemess.com. It'll take you to my page with some overviews that you can look at or fill out the contact form at the top. It also has my phone number, 678-355-8777.
All right, this next segment is called Ask Paul. It's where I read a listener email on the air, and I do my best to answer and help them through the challenge. And today's letter is from someone I'll call Jill. Here it is. Hi, Paul. I have been trying your podcast on presents. Oh my God, it's hard. I have an issue with listening to others, especially when face to face. I feel like I have to stop my mind before I can actually listen. I get nervous when someone is looking in my eyes, telling me something. I'm not listening at all, and I'm not focusing on what they say or the words they say. I don't hear because I feel fear, and I focus on that first. I feel I need to calm myself down before the conversation starts, but there's not enough time to do that. Anyone that actually tries to explain anything to me, I start feeling the fear right away. How do you stop and calm down and really listen and not feel fear? Maybe I feel judgment because I don't know the answer, or I don't know how to do what they're saying to me, or maybe I feel not smart enough to know the answer, or what? I'm not sure. Help. Thank you for that message, Jill, and I get it. I have been here. Now, just so I can clear something up for everyone that's listening, you listened to an episode that I called Practicing Presence in a World Full of something. I don't even remember the name. But the episode that you're talking about is where I walk you through some exercises on being in the present moment. And practicing presence takes practice. It really does. And one of the exercises I went through in that episode, if I can recall it, is staring at a tree or some sort of plant, and then pretending as if you've never seen it before. When you stare at something organic like that and pretend that you've never seen it before, everything appears new and you don't know what to call it. Now, it may seem strange because you know you're looking at a tree or something. I know I'm looking at a tree. But just pretend you didn't know. And where does your mind go when you do that? Pretend you don't know what this thing that's sticking out of the ground is. Pretend you don't know what this thing is, what it's made up of, what it does, how it survives, or how it came to exist in the first place. Just pretend you don't know. And when you pretend, you start acting curious. You start being curious. You start looking at things as if they were foreign to you. It's a very childlike perspective. It's like taking a kid to the carnival for the first time, where they've never seen any rides. Not only do they get to see them and their face is lit up, but they get to ride on them, and it's just an experience they've never had. It's excitement and it's curiosity. Now, it may not be the same excitement looking at a plant or a tree, but the curiosity can still be there. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? Why is it this color here and a different color there? I mean, there's so many questions that you can ask once you pretend you don't know what you're looking at. So that's one of the exercises that I teach on that episode, is just becoming curious and pretending that you don't know. It's humbling, and it puts you in a position of being okay with not knowing. Now, you can also apply this to the way you communicate or what you do when you're talking to someone. And what I mean by that is if they start talking to you and maybe they start talking over your head or they're saying things that you don't completely understand, or for whatever reason, if you start getting fearful, become curious. Now, what this does, when you become curious about what people are saying, you get inquisitive. And it doesn't feel like you're unintelligent. It just feels inquisitive. So when you know they're talking over your head and you become inquisitive, you ask questions. You ask, what do you mean by that? I'm not sure I understand. Could you explain it a little bit better? Now, that's an easy answer. I can't just leave you with that answer and say, that's all you have to do, because there's probably other very deep fears that are coming up for you. You mentioned judgment might be one of them, or somebody might look down on you, and that doesn't feel very good. I know that. So let me share this with you as a second thing that can come up for you that will really squash any negativity almost right away. So if you ever feel nervous or fearful when you're talking to someone, this following thing will squash the negativity. It'll squash the bad feeling, but you won't always want to do it. So this is something I shared recently with a coaching client when I was walking them through a way to be less fearful when talking to people. And it has to do with my history of meeting people and also being nervous when I was called on to introduce myself. For example, if I was with a group of people, this happened most of my life, even in school, if everyone I was with would introduce themselves, hey, my name's Bill, I'm 36 years old, so on and so forth. And the next person would introduce themselves. And then as the people that were introducing themselves, as that got closer to me and I had to introduce myself, I started getting more and more nervous. I started sweating, and I did not want to be called on or singled out. That was not a good experience. So fast forward all my life, being in groups, being nervous every time I was called on, even for something as simple as introducing myself. Fast forward to, I think it was 2009, when I was in a group of hypnotists, and we were all getting to know each other, and we were sitting all around this table, and here we go again with the introductions. And as I watched the introductions get closer and closer to me, knowing that my turn was coming up, I started getting nervous again. And at this point in life, this wasn't too long ago, 2009, I should not be nervous introducing myself. And so I really thought about what in the world is going on here? Why am I nervous? This is ridiculous. I shouldn't get nervous at this point in my life. I'm an adult now. I can handle this situation. But I was still nervous. Nothing changed how I felt even after saying that. And so finally the introductions were coming closer to me, and the person next to me, she did her introduction, and now it was my turn. And this is around the same time I started honoring my boundaries and honoring myself and being more authentic no matter what the consequence. So I decided to literally be authentic and say, when I was watching you guys introduce yourself, I was getting more and more nervous. And I didn't really care how that went over. I just wanted to speak it because it was my truth. And I said, I don't know why I get nervous when I have to introduce myself, but I just do. And then someone on the other side of the room said, well, we are all hypnotists. We could probably help you with that. And then everyone laughed, and it immediately, I'm telling you what, it immediately extinguished the nervousness. It was gone. And I was able to laugh at that and say, you're right. And then introduce myself without a problem. Now, why did addressing what was going on inside of me work? It was because I was resisting the emotions. I was resisting the feeling I had. And the only way to let that resistance go was to express it in some way. So I did. I chose to be vulnerable and expressed that I was feeling nervous. Even for something silly as introducing myself, I just said, I don't know why I feel nervous, I just do. But doing that changed it. It changed everything. In fact, from that point on, I felt better in any group that I was in where I had to introduce myself. I still had the jitters now and then, but I would address it. And I would also mention it. And I would say, oh, it's weird. I feel nervous having to introduce myself for some reason, only because I knew it worked last time. And when I have to do that, I just do it. I just present my emotions first, what I'm feeling, what I'm doing, and then I introduce myself. Or for whatever reason, if I'm feeling nervous, if I'm talking to someone and I get these emotions that come up, I will express them in the moment. And I usually preface it with, I'm not sure why I feel this way, but I do. But anyway, let's talk. And when I did it in that group of hypnotists, it really broke the ice in the room. And in fact, I would bet that maybe a quarter or more of them probably felt the same way I did. And by me saying that, it also extinguished their fears too. Now that's just a guess, but I'm willing to bet it's true. It's almost like the unspoken elephant in the room, where nobody mentions it and the tension stays. Where I just come in and say, hey, there's an elephant over there. Did anyone see it? And everyone laughs and goes, oh, finally someone mentioned it so we don't have to avoid the topic. That's what I think happens, is that I don't avoid the topic, which helps me release the resistance of my emotions. It gets out of my system. I feel better and those around me feel better. And I also get bonus points for being vulnerable because people see me as more authentic. People recognize me as someone who's not going to pull one over on them, who's not going to put on a mask and be someone fake. They just see me as real. And that changes the dynamic of our relationship. And that helps bring people closer to me and trust me. Your authentic self will build trust with others. If you are willing to be vulnerable, you will build trust with other people. Some people won't understand. Some people will be like, why are you nervous? That's stupid. That's ridiculous. But those people probably don't have much compassion. Maybe they're not the type of people that you need to be hanging around with. I don't know. But most people will understand and have been there or are there now. How many times have you been in an awkward conversation where you're looking around and you're like, hey, and the other person's looking around and said, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's going great. And you both feel awkward. Well, think about what would extinguish that awkwardness right away. Think about it first, just a second. What could you say that would extinguish that awkwardness? If you said something to the effect of, I don't know why, but this feels awkward, you're on the right track. It's probably exactly what I would say. And what you're doing is addressing what the metaphoric elephant in the room. You're addressing what is causing the tension. Addressing what is causing the tension helps extinguish the tension. It doesn't mean the problem's solved. It just helps release the resistance to whatever's going on, to whatever you fear inside of you, whatever emotions that are going on inside of you that you're trying to resist from feeling. Like, oh, I can't be nervous right now. I have to look good, or whatever's happening. So that's my second piece of advice, is to address the emotions that are going on inside of you with the person or people that you're with. Now, you won't always have a chance to do that, but when you do, or even if you don't think you have a chance, do it anyway and see what happens. It's not bad to be authentically vulnerable. If you feel stupid, say, you know what? When you're talking, I feel stupid. I think you must be a lot smarter than me, so talk to me as if I've never heard about this concept before. Now, can you do that at work where you have to look smarter than everyone thinks you are? I don't know. You'll have to assess those situations as they come up. But this really is all about letting go of the resistance. And letting go of the resistance might be just expressing what's going on inside of you. So that's my advice for you, Jill. When you're in that situation, just address it in the moment. You may not get the best response from the other person, but it's better to be your authentic self and get it out, if you can, just to extinguish the resistance to it. Now, it's possible you're making these high-level deals with business people and emotions probably shouldn't come into play, and they might see it as weak. You know, this is a situation that is certainly something you have to assess and evaluate and figure out if it's the best time to be emotionally vulnerable. There are a lot of times where it's not the best time to be emotionally vulnerable unless you don't care about the consequences. If you can get to that, that's empowerment. But if you can't, you have to rely on certain transactions in life, certain ways of being around certain people, then it will be more challenging. However, the good news is that you can practice with safer people. Now, what happens when you practice being more authentic with safer people? Those are the people that you trust to be yourself around. And if you are yourself, they're not going to just judge you or criticize you. They're just going to let you be yourself. When you can be emotionally vulnerable with safe people, you'll find that when you're in other situations, that your emotional resistance isn't so high. So if you find yourself in a situation where you feel this emotion coming up and it doesn't feel very good, it feels like fear, then you can address it with the safe person and just say, I don't know why, but I'm feeling fear. I don't know what I'm afraid of. And then maybe you can have a productive conversation. That way you're addressing the fear in a safe place. So when the high-level executive comes along and you feel like this fear coming up, then you will have addressed that same fear with someone safe so that the next time this comes up, you'll understand what's happening. And you may not even get it again, because the first time you address it, the first time you bring it up, it may squash it from that point on. And that would be very handy. Just like when I was with those hypnotists, the first time I did it, it pretty much squashed my anxiety and nervousness from that point on when it came to introducing myself in a group. Every now and then it comes back and I'm sitting there and I have to introduce myself again, even now. But I laugh about it. In my head, I go, what? I'm getting nervous again? This is ridiculous. I'm just going to be myself. And then I just blurt out whatever I'm going to blurt out, and everyone's fine, and sometimes they laugh, and then I just say what I'm going to say. And if I have to say I'm nervous about this, then it just comes out that way. But it's more authentic, and it really relieves a lot of the pressure. So I hope this helps you. That's what I wanted to share with you regarding what happens when you feel nervous about people. And definitely, yes, you could feel like you're being judged. And to tell you the truth, yes, people judge. But remember that when people judge you, it's usually something they haven't yet healed from in themselves. When I used to judge my wife when I was married, it was my own healing that I hadn't done yet regarding living with an abusive alcoholic stepfather. So I had dysfunction that I brought in from childhood, and I became a judgmental person. So I would judge people, but that's because I was focused on other people, so I didn't have to focus on myself. I figured it was a lot easier, and it made perfect sense to me to judge other people because they weren't doing things the right way. But that came from a place of wounding. That came from a place of not being healed in certain areas of my life. So when you do feel judged, you probably are being judged. Just not to make it any worse, but think about the person judging you and what healing they haven't done yet. This is where curiosity kicks in, and maybe even compassion. It's hard to be compassionate towards judgmental people, I know, and sometimes you don't want them in your life, so you have to get them out of your life if you can. But if any type of compassion can creep in when they're judging you, then it might just make you feel a little better that they're the ones that really need the help, if you want to look at it that way, and not you. Thank you so much for writing, Jill. I appreciate you sharing that, and I hope that you are able to come to an emotionally vulnerable place in a safe place with a safe person so that you can start squashing these negative emotions so that they don't appear again. Thanks again for writing. On to our next segment now. Let me ask you a question before we get into our next segment. Do you have a big decision that you're facing and just don't know which way to turn with it? Most of my clients have a decision to make. Not all of them, but most of them. And if they didn't know that they had a decision to make, they soon realize, after they feel empowered, that they actually can and will make decisions that are right for them. If you find yourself in a place where you have a decision to make but just aren't sure which way to go, that's one of my specialties. One of the major drivers of your decisions are your values. Your values are what you find most important in your life. What you value most will drive all of your decisions at the deepest unconscious level. In other words, when you know what you value most, you know what decision to make. It's when you're really not sure exactly what you value most where indecision and stagnation kick in. Now, let me give you an example. I had a client whose highest value in his career was making money. Now, this isn't a bad value. It's just something that he values above anything else in the category of career. He could not figure out why he wasn't actually making money. I mean, if he valued money over everything else business-wise, why wasn't he making any money? He really believed that he should be making money because he put that value at the top. So he was stumped. Now, the problem was crystal clear to me, but he just didn't see it at all. So I looked at him and said, "Your top value cannot be making money. In fact, I know it isn't. Because if it was, then why would you give your services away for free? I mean, if making money is the most important value in your business, why do you give away what you should be charging for free?" Let me tell you, the look on his face was priceless. He pondered about what I said for a few seconds, and then I knew he got it. He understood. But then he got puzzled and said, wait, I thought if I placed making money as my highest value, that everything I do would have to align with that. Why isn't that happening? I said, because there's something above that value that's even more important, and you don't even realize it's there. Again, his expression was priceless, but it allowed us to dig further and get him out of the hole he was in so that he could have a new direction. It's like a lighthouse in the ocean. When you see the lighthouse in the distance, then you know which direction to steer your ship. He wanted his top value to be making money in career, but he was steering his ship towards the wrong lighthouse, and he didn't even know it. So after we talked, he absolutely had a new direction, a new lighthouse on the shore, and was following that one. And he completely got it. He knew what he needed to do next. And I want you to get it too. If you're in a place where you just feel stuck or you need to make a big decision and you just aren't sure which way to go, coach with me. I'll get you to an empowered place and you'll know which path to take. You've seen a dog tied up in a yard, right? They travel the same path over and over again. And soon, the grass is dead and they can't travel any further than their own rut. If you want to move beyond that rut, visit theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on Coach with Paul. Wherever you are in the world, I can work with you over video or phone. To reach the most people, I do all my coaching remotely. Again, that's theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on Coach with Paul. I hope to talk with you soon. All right, what's in the box? This is the segment that I pretty much pull anything out of the box and talk about something that may or may not be related to today's show. I guess everything I say is kind of a what's in the box anyway. But today I do have something a little unusual, and it's a thought that came to me, and that is the emotions of animals. Now, regardless of what you think about this, I truly believe that we are all animals. We are all made up of extremely similar nervous systems and neurology, and of course there's major differences in species and things like that. But let me give you an example, because I've had to face this a few times in my life where I recognized the emotion of an animal. And what happened to me about a month ago is that we have a goldfish at home. And I feed this goldfish every morning, and I really enjoy just saying hi to him, and he swims around and he comes up and he puts his mouth at the top of the water waiting for the food, and I think it's cute. And, that could be instinct and hunger, just feed me so I can continue swimming around in this tank. But I see it as much more than that. I see any type of instinctual behavior like that as tied into emotions. And what I mean by that is that when you're hungry, there's usually an emotion that comes up with it. And sometimes the hungrier you get, the crankier you get. I believe it works the same way with animals. Well, that's not entirely my point, so let me get back to my story, which is one morning I went to feed Flash, our goldfish, and I saw something that really disturbed me. That was he was caught in the net that was sitting on top of the tank. The net had fallen in and got stuck on the filter at the top of the tank. And somehow he got into the net right at the surface of the water, so there was only like an inch of water, and he was laying there sideways in the net, breathing. He couldn't move out of it. He was just breathing. And my heart skipped a beat. I was like, oh my God. So I pushed the net back into the water, and I got him out, and he immediately went to the back of the tank and just sat there, or floated there, as if he were in shock, as if he were scared. And he floated there for a long time and didn't move, which was not his natural behavior. I've been watching his behavior every single day for over a year now, and this was not normal. And this showed me that there's something going on, even in a goldfish, that there's some sort of reaction. And I attribute it to emotion. I attribute it to fear. People say that goldfish brains are tiny and they're just these dumb little creatures that swim around and eat. But I've watched Flash day after day, and it's funny because when he's hungry, he knows how to get my attention. When you really start observing animal behavior, you'll find that they do different things to get your attention, whether it's to eat, to go out and go to the bathroom, or to do anything else. They find ways to get your attention, even a goldfish. And when I see him at the closest point to me in the next room, and he sees me look over at him, and he starts swimming fast, zigzag, left and right, and spinning around, he's trying to get my attention. And it's usually before I've fed him. Now that says something. I don't know if you want to call it consciousness. I don't know if you want to call it emotion. But I think it's fascinating, and it just tells me that wow, we're almost the same as a goldfish. Now, I value almost all life. I value even the smallest bugs. Unless they are flying around my face and they just won't leave me alone, then they have to go. But when I see a goldfish that sees me looking over at him and then just starts swimming around as if he were an excited dog, that tells me something. Sure, he could be just programmed that way because it's all stimulus response, like, oh, the last time I swam around, he fed me, so maybe I need to swim around again. But I just don't see that. And if that was the case, isn't that what we do too? Isn't that what humans do? Oh, if I behave this way, I'll get this response out of that person. How is that so different? So there's my take on animals and emotions. I truly believe they have them. And I've seen over and over again animals happy, depressed, mourning for a loss, sad, anxious, sometimes neurotic, many of the same things that we go through, and even the same behaviors. So, I'm open to being wrong about this, but knowing that they have emotions works for me. Knowing that animals can feel happiness, feel pain, feel sadness, it works for me because it opens my heart, and that I'm just not going to ignore them when they're near me. I'm going to treat them as if they actually care about being treated well. It makes me feel good, and in my personal opinion, it makes them feel good too. Thanks for joining me today. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for listening to The Overwhelmed Brain. I want to thank Asha with GetOutOfTheMess.com. Since I started having her on the show, she's been getting a lot of phone calls from people just like you that end up in situations that are messy, quite literally. That's why she has that website. They're messy and they don't know what to do next. You should never have to be in a situation where you feel so alone that you don't know what to do next. Sometimes you do need support. If you're in the U.S. or Canada, give Asha a call, 678-355-8777, and she'll guide you to a solution that may be perfect for you. I also want to thank everyone who has purchased a book or a worksheet. I mentioned the self-sabotage worksheet. That is the best seller on my site. Just go to theoverwhelmedbrain.com and click on Deeper Learning, and you'll find some books and worksheets there. The self-sabotage one is the one that walks you through finding out what your values are. Because sometimes, even though you think you know what they are, there's a couple that are hidden at the top, and that's why you keep sabotaging yourself. So if you want to learn more about that, download that worksheet, or just like I said earlier, coach with me. I can help you dig down and get you on a path that's right for you. I want to thank you if you are using the Amazon link. The Amazon link does work. If you click on it and aren't sure if the show is receiving any compensation, it is. It's not hundreds or thousands of dollars, but it's enough to keep the show going, to keep it on the air. So if you're using the Amazon link, I appreciate you and I thank you. And our last thanks to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for some of the music transitions in today's show. I just want to close the show today with the thought of the yes person syndrome. If you are a yes person, if you feel like you need to neutralize every situation, or you need to keep everyone calm, and that will make the situation better. If you're that type of person, you're always trying to figure out how to keep everyone happy. You're always saying yes to people so that there's no confrontation. You find yourself getting walked on because maybe you're not the best at standing up for yourself. If you're that type of person, it's time to really evaluate what makes you happy. And what I mean by that is if being overly compassionate towards other people and honoring other people's boundaries over yours makes you happy, doesn't give you that yucky feeling that you swallow because you're not honoring yourself, if that truly makes you happy, then don't change a thing. But my feeling is that deep down inside, there's something you don't like about it. There's something that you really do wish you could say something else or do something else. And if that's the case, and I'm willing to bet that somewhere deep inside that might be happening, then I want you to ask yourself, why do I do that? Why don't I honor myself? Why am I a no to me person? Why would I say no to myself? And think about that. Explore that. You're probably going to come up with some answers. Well, I don't want to upset the person. Or it's just easier when I give in. It's just a lot easier to live life that way. There's a lot of things that are easier to do, but are they fulfilling? And is it worth losing a part of yourself so that someone else can gain? Is it worth it? I mean, that's an open question. You may say, yes, it's worth it. My kids are worth every ounce of happiness that I have. I brought them into this world and I want them to be happy, so I will sacrifice all my happiness. You may feel that way. I won't hold that against you. But do remember this. You can only give from the place you're at. If you're overly compassionate and it's draining you, and you're overly friendly and you say yes to everything and it just drains the life out of you, then from where are you giving? You can't give compassion without being compassionate towards yourself. You can't be genuine without being genuine to you. You can't be a lot of things until you give those things to yourself. That's not empowerment. That's the opposite of empowerment. I don't even know what that's called. Disempowerment. Don't go down the road of disempowerment. Sure, there are people that are going to require our help, and we are going to want to help them. And there are people that we are going to honor over ourselves because of certain situations. We might run into a burning building at our own risk to save someone. It's just the way it is. We are wired to want to save and help people. Some of us aren't. Some of us end up in prison because that's not true. But it's not because we weren't born that way. We were either conditioned or we had some sort of dysfunction in our brain or malfunction in our brain. The point is, when we are conscientious of our own personal, emotional evolution, or whatever you want to call it, then there are certain things that we must do for ourselves if we're going to get past some of the challenges in our life. And that's why you listen to this show. That's why you seek other self-help things or go to therapy, because you want something better for yourself. That is one step towards something better for yourself. Honoring yourself and being self-compassionate is one step towards something better for yourself. That's what I want for you. And with that, open your mind and step into your power and be firm in your decisions and actions so that you can create the life you want. Always take steps to grow and evolve. You are powerful beyond measure. And above all, and this is something I absolutely know to be true about you, you are amazing. Hi, Paul. I love your podcast and appreciate you sharing your journey and insights with all of us. I have listened to many of your episodes. I meditate, I do yoga, and I find that I keep struggling with the relationship that I'm in. Wait, this is what I read last week. This isn't going to work. I need another email.
If I can still be happy after having to pay taxes from my lottery winnings, you can find happiness in spite of your losses too. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a daily massage to attend to. Thinking positively.